very, very interesting. This is exactly what we have been saying for years. Stop trying to replace already iconic established characters and giving them to as like these weird like hand-me-downs to women and people of color. Stop doing that and create new iconic characters for these people.
Because the Woman King has proven us all wrong, ladies and gentlemen. Diversity and representation is so damn important. The trailer for this movie was bombed to hell and back with dislikes. Because why? Because people were sick and tired of the identity politics, the messaging, and the title alone is a joke.
Create new iconic characters for these people.
So hello once again from the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. I like starting my video by saying that, and I also got a new thing to say, is that yes, I am the only English left-wing YouTuber. I said that at the start of my video the other day, and I said to my girlfriend before I said it that people would take me very seriously. Do you guys think so little of me that I actually think I'm the only English left-wing YouTuber on the whole platform? Come on, guys. I was clearly joking. But anyway, today we're going to be talking about a group of people I haven't talked about in a while, it feels like. And that is anti-SJW nerd YouTube channels. Now, it's weird because there's been a lot of stuff going on with them lately, and I haven't really spoke about it, so I thought I'd kind of like collect all the recent outrage and make it into one video. And it's basically a pattern I've been noticing for the last couple of years, is that these anti-SJW nerd channels either do not like black women. I mean, that would hardly be the most surprising thing ever, but also even if they don't personally hate black women, they are perfectly happy to drum up outrage directed at black women, whether that be Star Wars, whether that be black Angrboda in the new God of War game, and more recently, whether that be Ariel in the Little Mermaid live action movie, which has made these guys go absolutely insane. And when you break it down, the only problem you could have with Ariel being cast as a black girl is that you're just the racist. Even these guys caring about the Little Mermaid is just absolutely hilarious anyway. Like, these guys were worried about the sanctity of Disney's The Little Mermaid, and that apparently is completely ruined by her skin color changing. Like, what actual difference does that make at all? It's pretty clear it makes no difference. It's pretty clear the person cast was cast for their acting and singing ability. And you've probably seen these videos. I'm not going to play you them because YouTube's funny about showing kids in YouTube videos. But there has been a really nice reaction to the casting of Ariel as a black girl by other black girls who love Disney princesses and just haven't felt represented on screen by people who look like them. Yeah, there have been a couple Disney princesses that aren't white, but by and large, they continue to be white, and historically, they have been white going back to Snow White in the 1930s. So you can be like a nice human being and be happy for people who finally feel represented, people who love this mermaid princess and now see someone who looks like them on screen. And all these children having nice reactions. Isn't that so lovely? Or you could be some weird little anti-SJW who actually sees this as like some sort of like woke attack on Western civilization. And also there's something I want to talk about. They often say, stop changing these things. Stop changing white characters into black characters and stuff like that. And then they often also say, make your own. Like, make your own black stories. If there's an audience for it, then surely you can get that made. And then a film came out called The Woman King, which focuses on a black tribe in Africa in the 1800s, which had armed forces, which were women. And these people are still going insane about it. So which is it? Do you just hate race swapping because it's corporate virtue signaling? Or do you just hate black women and black people and you feel like anything showing black people in entertainment is woke? So we're going to be talking about the history of all this stuff today, and we're going to be going through all the controversies and just kind of pinpointing the hypocrisy of these people. And you guys might think, you know, what about black men, for instance? And I will say they do have this reaction to black men, but sometimes with black men, as I'm going to show you, they have their faves. They have their favorite black male actors who they don't mind actually playing historically white roles. Sam Jackson is one, and Idris Elba is another. But we're going to talk about all of that in the video. But before we go any further, please like the video, and in the comments, here's a fun one to spin, I guess, the topic on its head. What is the most ridiculous, historically, like, ethnic role or non-white role which has been played by a white person? And of course, when it's played by a white person, no one really cares. So of course, Christian Bale playing Moses, Jake Gyllenhaal playing the Prince of Persia, John Wayne playing Genghis Khan. What is the most ridiculous time you've seen a white person play a historic character who wasn't white? Also, check me out on social media at the Kavernacle, on Twitter, on Instagram. To keep up with what I'm doing in Vietnam and like the various travels I'm doing, I'm posting that all mainly on my Instagram story, and I'm putting it on my Instagram highlights. If you care about any of that stuff, please check out my Instagram. I said this in the last video and I saw a couple of you have been following. I'm guessing people are interested in that content as well. Also, check out the second channel and check out the subreddit in the description. Also, consider becoming a patron. I'm trying to build up as many $1 to $3 patrons as possible, the benefits of which are getting access to the Discord server and my Nintendo Switch friend code. And also, I'm going to be posting exclusive Vietnam Asia related content there as well. I think what I'm going to do is every month make a properly edited video where me and my girlfriend just talk about our travels and our experiences. I feel that's better value than maybe a more like lazy video filmed with my phone, which I was going to do that more regularly, but let me know in the comments if you're a patron how you feel about that, and let's move on into the video. So there are timestamps in the description and they're pretty easy to find. If you only care about certain controversies, please skip through this. But I thought, because I'm making a video about how these guys don't like black women, especially when they appear in entertainment, I thought I would have to go through it more like historically over the last couple of years. So when I first noticed this stuff is that when these guys were making loads of videos on this content creator called Christine Ariel, you might know her, I think she's appeared on like Critical Role and stuff like that. She got announced as the new host of the High Republic YouTube show. Not cast in a film, not cast in like a major TV show. She was just the host on the High Republic, which was a new series of like books, a YouTube show about on the official Star Wars channel, right? And then they dug up some old tweets where she was talking about like Black Lives Matter things and telling white people it's not the time for you to speak about these things, saying that white women can uphold like a system of racism. But basically this sent them into an absolute frenzy, and all these anti-SJW nerd YouTubers made multiple videos on her, and this helped create loads and loads of racist harassment towards her, and they called her stuff like an anti-white racist and things like that.
So this is the person that was just announced right here. She wrote, "I can officially scream. I am the host of the new official series, Star Wars The High Republic show." And she's so excited. Congratulations. Congratulations indeed. Wow, I'm glad you're working on a Star Wars show so you can continue to tell us how terrible white people are. Continue to hire people that are blatant racists. You can show where this woman has tweets and tweets and tweets full of racist comments towards white people. And that's okay in the social justice propaganda world. That's okay within the walls of Lucasfilm, because this is what Kathleen Kennedy wants. This is who she hires, and this is the message she wants to continue to push forward.
I made that video, I think, in January 2021. Even if these guys don't think they're racist, the dog whistles and their choice of targets always revealed to me that these people are racist. And if you didn't know already, all of these people are fanatical Donald Trump supporters. I mean, that pretty much tells you these people are racist. Now, if we're going to move on a bit further, this was also last year. Basically, Angrboda is the wife of Loki in Norse mythology, right? And it was shown in a new God of War trailer, Angrboda would be like a child who's like Atreus's age. Because if you've played God of War, you know why that would be relevant to Atreus. But these people very much weren't happy that their most revered mythical figure of Angrboda, who they probably didn't even know before this point, was now played by a black girl. You know, someone who wasn't real, someone who was depicted in mythical Norse mythology, apparently must have had white skin. And some of them were saying like, well, wouldn't she have blue skin? Frost giants, ice giants, they have blue skin. And in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Angrboda does have blue skin. The trouble being, in Norse mythology, there is also no reference to her having blue skin either. So her skin color is never really revealed. And also, who cares? Like, these people don't care that Jesus Christ is depicted as like a white European man throughout like the whole of history. And now suddenly they're very butthurt that Angrboda, someone they didn't even care about until like 2 seconds ago, is now played by a black actress. So let's have a look at a bit of the backlash as well.
Like, this move is a clear race swap virtue signal. Just call it what it is, all right? Let's not act like you were, deep into the mythology and you just were just trying to, tell a different tale. No. I'm not sure that there's a lot of narrative to support. Very Norse-looking character here. The only question I have is why don't they just tell stories that include black characters rather than race swapping? I think that that's a pretty easy thing to do. You're right. Black characters have been around forever. Why not tell stories with said characters rather than swap?
Insane hypocrisy, this insane double standard that we are seeing play out in front of our eyes right now. This is nuts to me. How anyone can take this seriously. I will say, Fat Thor, I think that is an accurate representation based on the source material. And when I criticize this race swap garbage that we have in order to push diversity with Angrboda, that is garbage because of the source material. You can't sit there and use that defense that, it's accurate to the source material when it comes to Thor, and then flip that on its head, ignore all of that, and say, no, black voices need to be elevated. We need more representation. This is insane. This is why people have no respect for games journalists. This is why people have no respect for so many of these woke losers who just want a virtue signal for some kind of brownie points.
So I do find it funny that they feel Angrboda just like has to be white. Because it's Norse mythology. Like, we all know everyone in Norse mythology is human and white. Of course, Angrboda and Loki's child is like a literal wolf. So we really have to be like historically accurate when it comes to Norse mythology. And this stuff is always so ridiculous. But I feel it's quite sinister because, as you've seen, they've weaponized this so much to completely just brainwash so many young, impressionable people where they think, no one could possibly get a role in a film because they're just talented, right? It has to be because of virtue signaling, race swapping, all this stuff to push diversity. And we can laugh at it, but again, as we're going to see, I feel like the racism is getting less and less subtle, because maybe with these ones you can be a bit more like they're just generally being idiots about like supposed race swapping, and that's the racism. But now it just feels like they're very much just targeting black women. Now, we also had Moses Ingram playing Reva on the Kenobi show, and these guys went absolutely insane about it, also because Disney stood up for the actress. So if you guys don't know, Moses Ingram played this villain character in the Kenobi show. I personally thought her story was quite weak overall. I thought she was a kind of cool character, but I felt like the plot kind of undermined the best bits of the Kenobi show, which was about the relationship between Darth Vader and Kenobi, and to a lesser extent, relationship between Obi-Wan and Princess Leia, which I did actually enjoy when all was said and done, even though some episodes were quite silly. But what always makes me laugh is that when these actresses receive racist harassment from these nerd types, these people say, well, that is Disney trying to deflect from the criticism.
By the official Star Wars Twitter is an attempt to gaslight everyone into thinking, well, if there's people out there that are criticizing Moses Ingram for how bad her character is in Kenobi, it must just be the racists out there. They're trying to set up this false dichotomy. And in a big way, they succeeded, because a lot of these drones are out there repeating exactly the same thing. You certainly didn't do it for Gina Carano, but in this case, when people are not liking a product and not liking a character, you stand behind this wall of diversity and try to say, if anyone criticizes this, it must just be because you're racist.
But generally speaking, I got a lot of problems with it, but my biggest problem with it is Reva, and it's not because she's black, and it's not because she's a woman, it's because she's a terribly written character, and the actress is doing a really bad job in their performance. That's it. Now, Lucasfilm will paint that as racist and sexist, because why? Because they only hired this actress as a virtue signaling opportunity to begin with, and that's why so many people are tired of this.
But you only think like that if there's some element of truth to your views, right? So, like I said, I didn't really like Reva's character. When Disney are calling out racist for criticizing her, I don't feel called out. Do you know why? Because none of my problems with Reva was because of her skin color. And it shows you also these people will always have a problem with black women in entertainment, even if you create an original character. Like Reva is not race swapped, they created her for the show, and they still talk about her being evidence of diversity and wokeness and all that stuff pretty much exclusively because this is a black woman in the entertainment. And these people have been doing this for Star Wars for years because there was these twins in the comics who were non-binary, right? These people going crazy about that as well. Because, you know, the Star Wars universe, infinite races of aliens would never have non-binary characters or black women inquisitors. Again, it wasn't even subtle with the Moses Ingram stuff. And whether or not like these YouTube channels originally incite the hatred towards them, they always seem to capitalize on the hatred towards them and in turn drum up more hatred towards them because they have big YouTube platforms, far bigger than my channel. And obviously they have a massively racist right-wing fan base, in turn creates more harassment for these people. And again, if you are sensitive about Disney or any other company, you know, Amazon recently did it with Lord of the Rings, calling people out for racist abuse, and you feel called out by it, again, that's on you, and you got to unpack why you feel called out, because I have my problems with all these properties. None of that has to do with someone's skin color. So just before we go into The Little Mermaid versus The Woman King, something I said is these people often have their faves, Sam Jackson or Idris Elba. And there was a clip when they were talking about a black James Bond. Someone from Geeks and Gamers was saying that he agrees with black James Bond, and I found that quite interesting. And he also said that, you know, we don't want race swapping or women playing these roles like James Bond. We just want them to have their own things, right? And I also find it curious, Idris Elba played Heimdall in the 4 movies, right? Idris Elba is a black man. No one has really cared about that. I'm sure there were some people at the time, but historically, people like Heimdall in the 4 movies, even though he died in Avengers. I haven't ever seen a pushback on the scale to the Angrboda thing, despite it being in a much bigger property and despite it being like a more well-known character. Again, quite curious, they don't care about this, but listen to this guy talk about how he likes Idris Elba as a potential James Bond even.
This is exactly what we have been saying for years. Stop trying to replace already iconic established characters and giving them to as like these weird like hand-me-downs to women and people of color. Stop doing that and create new iconic characters for these people. But it's almost like you guys aren't confident enough in women or people of color to be able to carry new franchises or become iconic characters. And honestly, that is pretty shameful. This is actually kind of crazy. James Bond absolutely should be a male. Now look, I don't even have a problem with, you know, black men playing James Bond. I don't, you know, I think that Idris Elba would be an amazing James Bond. Now there's probably people that are going to get me about that from the other side of the spectrum. That's fine, no, but I think that Idris Elba can play an amazing James Bond. I think he can. I think that he has the male charisma that James Bond possesses to play that character.
So I do find that funny how he's saying the corporations are not confident of black women carrying franchises or being new characters when you have someone like Reva and then they all just do a massive pile-on of the actress and send racist hate towards her. I'm not talking about the YouTubers here, I'm talking about the general nerd community. I just want you to keep that in mind because they've said this many times, you know, create new things for all these minorities, create new characters, create something like Black Panther for everyone, and let white people have their white characters. You don't need to change them, you don't need to race swap them, but every time there is a new character who is a different minority group or a different color of skin, they all go crazy anyway. It happened with Miles Morales, it happened with Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, it happened with Reva, and it has also happened with The Woman King. But I just want to contrast the reaction first. So these guys obviously went crazy about The Little Mermaid, and I'm going to play you also a little clip of Matt Walsh talking about this to show you how ridiculous it is. But first I thought I would show you some of the Geeks and Gamers cast reacting to the Little Mermaid trailer getting insanely downvoted and disliked on YouTube on its first trailer. I wonder why. I'm sure it's because they had massive problems with the trailer and the visual style.
We have our first look at the live-action Little Mermaid from Disney. And as you can see by the downvotes, it's not going over very well. Not at all. Now, of course, we all know what's going to be followed up by that. We all know that Disney is going to make some claim about how everyone criticizing it is an ist or an ism and that they stand in solidarity. And then they're going to say how racism is bad. And then they're going to make a generalization about white people. We know it's it's coming. It would be more surprising if it didn't happen at this point, but it will. And of course, they love doing this. They love creating these things so that they can call everyone else the names and then try to silence them. But you're not going to silence us, Disney. And that's the whole problem. That's why a lot of these companies won't do it, because they want to build the fake victim narrative, because there's not enough supply of racism out there. There's just not. To meet the corporate demand, there's not enough supply. So they have to invent fake stories out there. Fake stories so that they can pretend that this is a widespread problem everywhere, and we're just going to have to pretend that this is such a big problem we have to continue to kneel for the national anthem and play the black national anthem at NFL games and, march in the streets and burn cities to the ground. It's all meant to create an image that just isn't reality.
Even though Disney likely knew that there would be some pushback because of the decision to go and cast Halle Bailey, which they were very upfront about. They said, the reason we're doing this, we are proud to promote diversity and inclusion. If you're going to change so many things about these stories, why not just tell your own? The reason's clear. Because Disney is creatively bankrupt. Hollywood is creatively bankrupt. They can't tell their own stories anymore. So all they do is try to tell their old stories, but push identity politics so that they can use it as a shield against all this criticism. Well, if you're going to try to tell me that every single person that's downvoted this, that's left a dislike, that's just because they're racist, well, that means there must be a serious problem, because you can't find enough people that aren't racist to not get this absolutely ratio.
So Ryan Kinnell there almost getting it, saying that, is everyone who dislikes this trailer a racist? Well, I would say more than most other trailers, I would say yeah, because literally, what is your problem with this trailer? Seriously, please tell me. You've only seen a trailer to this film, you haven't seen the film, you can't make your mind up on the performance, so what is the problem? What is the problem? If Ariel was white in this trailer, would it get all these downvotes? You know for a fact, 100%, if Ariel was white in this trailer, it would not get these downvotes. So then the answer is, the only reason people are disliking the trailer on YouTube is because of racism. There we go. And also, I love the racist dog whistling from Jeremy there, talking about like kneeling for the national anthem and burning down cities when talking about diversity. I wonder what he could be talking about. Could it be the Trump right-wing framing of the largely peaceful Black Lives Matter protest, which was met by the US police force like they were dealing with insurgents in Iraq? And also Ryan Kinnell reiterating something I was playing for you earlier. He's saying, well, Hollywood is creatively bankrupt. They can't tell their own stories anymore, so they're trying to ruin the old stories with wokeness. But as we're going to see, well, these people don't really like the Woman King either. The Woman King, very, very original story, nearly all black cast, black director, and they still hate it and call it woke nonsense. So again, could it be you just don't want to see black people in films anymore, and or you are grifting off this surge in racism, outright racism in nerd media, to capitalize it and make more money for yourself? Again, I am surprised how mask off the racism is becoming, and I've covered in other videos. Geeks and Gamers and The Quartering, for example, have both abandoned their politics channel because they just put it all on their main channel now. They don't care anymore. They don't try and separate it. It's very clear they're pandering to a very, very specific audience. And again, if you care that Ariel is black in The Little Mermaid, especially as an over 30-year-old dude, you've got to ask yourself some serious questions about your life. Even if you don't personally care for it or you don't even like the change, imagine getting so mad about it, you have to whip up your audience into a frenzy to hate the cast of this film. Now, in finding weird ways to justify racism, I think Matt Walsh has taken the cake here. But just like people with the Angrboda stuff, trying to talk about like realism when dealing with deeply unrealistic things like Norse gods that have children that are wolves, or literal mermaids who have human faces but somehow breathe underwater. So take a look at this absolutely ridiculous clip.
Also, by the way, with The Little Mermaid, can we also just mention that just from a scientific perspective, okay, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have someone with darker skin who lives deep in the ocean. I mean, if anything, not only should the Little Mermaid be pale, she should actually be translucent. If you look at deep sea creatures, they're like translucent. They have no kind of pigmentation whatsoever. And they're just like these horrifying, they look like skeletons floating around in the ocean. That's what the Little Mermaid should look like. She should be totally pale and skeletal, where you can see her skull through her face.
Films about mermaids not being realistic, I don't really care about. When I play games like The Witcher, or you watch media where mermaids are a bit more like evil looking, yeah, that is cool. But this is literally like a children's fantasy about being a mermaid. There is nothing realistic about half fish, half human people. So I don't think we need to start talking about deep sea fish and what a mermaid would actually look like. But also, I don't recall mermaids in the Little Mermaid film or cartoon living exclusively in like ocean trenches or something. I don't really understand that. Again, just very, very weird. But like I've been showing you throughout this video, a lot of these people say, stop ruining our historic white characters. Stop ruining it. Make your own thing, right? Make your own thing, make your own heroes, and we'll be fine with that. And if it does well, we'll celebrate it. I want to assess two types of responses. So the Woman King has actually had some controversy, not just due to a backlash of a film called The Woman King starring an all-black cast. It's because of the specific tribe in the film being involved in the European slave trade, as well as just various African slave trades as well. And a lot of people feeling that the film kind of downplays that by not really showing accurately the tribe's role in that. And I'm going to talk about that specifically in terms of these people don't really care when they're watching Hamilton that it's not very realistic about these bunch of slave owners. I didn't really see many people complain about The Patriot, which massively downplays racism at a time when slave owners were fighting to have more control over their own slaves. But I just want to talk about Jeremy's cope, because Jeremy doesn't want to talk about that angle because he knows his video will potentially get demonetized. But he's been coping really bad that The Woman King has had a very positive reception critically and has done fairly well at the box office for this type of film. I expect this will probably get nominated for awards, and it will probably have an even bigger box office later down the line when it's released maybe in Oscar season and stuff like that. But just interesting that he talks about how because the film initially wasn't review bombed on, aggregate score sites, that it proves you can't use that argument that racist trolls do this, before then saying that the trailer was review bombed and it deserved it because this is woke nonsense. And also another thing, on IMDb, loads of people were leaving 1-star reviews, disproportionately so, before the film was even out. Again, why would they do that? Why would they dislike the Little Mermaid trailer? Is there any reason they do that? Of course there is. One reason: racism.
As I sarcastically said in my last video when I covered this, when at the time it was sitting at 1,000 verified reviews and a 99% and a 4.9 out of 5, now it's sitting at a 2,500 verified with the same exact score. And as I said, now there can never be an argument about whether fans are review bombing anything, because this proves that fans are not toxic, they're not racist, and there is no review bombing. This proves it right here. It's over. Discussion over. So all of the films that you've argued against, whether it's The Last Jedi or Ghostbusters 2016 or Rings of Power or She-Hulk or whatever else, you can never argue that it's review bombing, because the Woman King has proven us all wrong, ladies and gentlemen. Diversity and representation is so damn important. 2,500 verified reviews, and the score has not moved from its perfect rating, essentially a perfect rating for this film. Now, as I showed you last time, you go back to the trailer for this movie was bombed to hell and back with dislikes. Because why? Because people were sick and tired of the identity politics, the messaging, and the title alone is a joke.
Make your mind up. Apparently people are now tired of identity politics. Even if you're using a historical tribe that featured black women warriors in the 1800s as your story, apparently now that's virtue signaling as well. These guys can't be happy, and it shows you and exposes their grift. Whenever they say, stop taking my white characters and making them black for corporate virtue signaling, make your own thing, they don't want people to make their own thing. They just want everything to be just like them, or just watch things that do not question their worldview or do not question, I guess, their narratives about things. That's why they all love Top Gun so much. I think Top Gun's a good movie too, but they loved it because it was just, US military propaganda, starred like the conventional Hollywood hero, white straight man, gets the girl, flies planes fast, willing to sacrifice themselves. These people just want to be spoon-fed that garbage over and over again. I'm so happy that conservatives largely do not have prominent roles in the creative process in art, because generally conservatives make absolutely terrible art, and if it isn't terrible, a lot of it has a lot of racism in it, like Mel Gibson films, or even stuff like The Deer Hunter. But there has been some legit controversy with this film, besides, wokeness, which is absolutely ridiculous when we're referring to this thing specifically, and it's because of the thing I was mentioning earlier. Now, Ryan Kinnell has made a video about this, and he's actually made about 3 videos saying the exact same thing about this, basically trying to derail this film by amplifying the criticism, right? And I'm not trying to downplay the criticism, but I just want to get into how this film is being held to a standard a lot of other things are not being held to. So again, we're going to get into the response of the cast of this, but basically, yes, this tribe participated in the slave trade, sold Africans to European colonialists, sold them to other African groups as well, and lots of people feel like the film doesn't properly deal with this issue despite dealing with it a tiny bit. But like I said, Hamilton is insanely popular. So many of the real life people involved in that were massive slave and plantation owners. Things like The Patriot, starring Mel Gibson, again, makes the American Revolution seem like it was anti-racist. It's an absolutely disgusting film. I don't recall people ever talking about how that film makes slavers seem good as well, but let's get into the backlash. So Viola Davis defends The Woman King from criticisms of historical inaccuracy. You're not going to win an argument on Twitter. The new movie, which premiered last week, is based on the Agoji, the all-female army of the West African kingdom of Dahomey in the 18th and 19th centuries. According to the Smithsonian magazine, the kingdom gained its wealth through slavery by trading other Africans to Europe and was a key player in the slave trade in the 18th century. Since the movie's release, some people on social media have complained that the movie minimizes the kingdom's role in the slave trade. In a new interview with Variety, Davis and co-star and husband Julius Tennant reiterated that the movie is fiction, not a documentary. First of all, I agree with the director saying, you're not going to win an argument on Twitter. We entered the story where a kingdom was in flux, at a crossroads. They were looking to find some way to keep their civilization and kingdom alive. It wasn't until the late 1800s that they were decimated. Most of the story is fictionalized. It has to be. Tennant added, we are now what we call edutainment. It's history, but we have to take license. We have to entertain people. If we just told a history lesson, which we could have, that would be a documentary. Unfortunately, people wouldn't be in the theaters doing the same thing we saw this weekend. The 68-year-old actor continued, we didn't want to shy away from the truth. The history is massive, and there are truths on that are there. If people want to learn more, they can investigate more. So speaking about how the film tackles the kingdom's role, director Prince Bythewood told Vox, and so being able to deal with, yes, they did this, but there was a fight and a young king, Gezo, was in the middle of this, trying to decide which way to go and ultimately deciding to go against it, knowing that it could affect his reign, which, for me personally, I find heroic in that he potentially gave his power to do the right thing. So look, I'm not saying the film isn't open to criticism in that it's choosing this very specific tribe and maybe not depicting their role in the slave trade as accurate as it should be. Again, if people want to have that conversation, I am totally fine with it. But also, if these people want to take historical license with the tribe and maybe not show them for what they were, that is something Hollywood has constantly done. How many films have you seen about the Roman Empire? How many films have you seen about various Greek militaries and stuff like that? Does it show them for brutal, conquering armies with loads of slaves themselves? Think of the movie 300, for example. Is 300 given the same criticism as The Woman King has got now? 300, where the whole of Sparta existed as a fascist slave state, where they literally had a slave class of people to do all the hard jobs for them and force them often to help them with the military as well. That was hardly touched on in 300. And remember, Sparta was the model for Germany in the 1930s and 40s as well. Haven't really seen much of this criticism generally for 300 outside of left-wing YouTubers and left-wing film critics. Like I said, Hamilton, The Patriot, so many different historical groups have been taken, and there's been historical license taken with them because they want to tell a certain story. The problems I have with 300 are mainly like the racism, more so than actually depicting the Spartans accurately. But like these people were saying, this film is being held up to an unfair standard, and I feel like that is because it is a visibly black African story, and if you guys think it doesn't depict their horrible actions enough, that is totally fair. You can feel that way about the Spartans in 300, various different historical groups, but you can also admit at the same time, this is being held to a different standard than previous films which tackle historical time periods. And Ryan Kinnell is doing something funny here. He's amplifying a lot of the black community's criticism towards the film because, as we all know from hearing these people for years, they care about what the black community think, don't they? Jeremy just said that they were all burning down cities when they were protesting police brutality. But yeah, these people really, really care about the black community. So let's have a look what he had to say.
But if you're taking a story like this that obviously a lot of people are very sensitive to, and you're just refusing to actually engage with reality when it comes to what you're putting on screen, it looks like some people in the black community are gonna have a massive problem with this. This is what happens when you're so focused on telling a story from like a certain narrative in Hollywood. You knew what they wanted to do. You knew they saw this as some sort of female empowerment story, and they were willing to bend and twist anything that actually happened in order to get that to come through, in order to make the women the heroes. They're so stunning, they're so brave, they're so powerful. Look at these female warriors. And now you have a massive group of people that are pissed at you for making these people who enslaved thousands and thousands of African people to then sell them to colonialists, to then sell them into the slave trade, right? You're making them the good guys and the protagonists. Now that the movie's been released, doesn't look like people are taking too kindly to this. Doesn't look like people are going to support it the same way you thought they would, just because you're marketing this based off female empowerment and skin color.
So Ryan Kinnell starts talking about making slavers the good guys at the end there. Like, I could probably ask him about some of the films I've mentioned and ask him what he thinks. What do you think of 300, making the Spartans the good guys? They were slavers too. They even ran a complete slave state. Do you like 300? Do you like Leonidas in 300? Because he was the king of that. Again, I do not feel like he would feel the same way about 300. He's just trying to use his controversy from the black community and within the black community to try and make himself look less racist in the anti-SJW's constant attack of black people and black women in entertainment properties. So to summarize about these anti-SJW nerd channels, I think they would actually probably get quite sensitive with accusations that they might be racist. Not that these people even understand what racism is in the first place, but I think even from the clips I've shown you, you can see that through their rhetoric and how they depict certain things or kind of play dumb. Like even Ryan Kinnell in that clip saying, you know, the 1-star reviews must have been because people were racist. The 1-star reviews came before the film was even out. The dislikes on the trailer for Little Mermaid, they all came before the film was out, and the only thing different apart from it being live action is Ariel is black. And then the Women King's own trailer got massively disliked before these people even caught on to the controversy. It's not like they were researching the tribe when they saw the trailer, were they? They didn't catch on themselves. They picked up on it because people in the black community were talking about this. There's two possibilities, and they can both be true at the same time. These people are racist, they don't like black people, they don't like black women, and they do not want to see them generally in media, or they realise there's a big resurgence of racism, lots of people are pushing back against anything which includes diversity, even if it's set in Africa, depicting an actual African tribe historically. They can capitalise on it for their grift. They can make money off it, and you can make your own mind up about which one might be like really ideologically racist and which ones are grifters or which ones are both. But it's very, very clear that these people are happy to either incite hatred against visible black women, or they want to piggyback upon these hate mobs and grift off them and amplify them and make them worse. It happened with Christina Ariel in 2021. It happened with Angrboda. It happened with Moses Ingram in Star Wars. It happened with Little Mermaid. And it's sort of happening with the Woman King as well. And like I said, I don't really feel like there is any pass given to any black female actresses. I haven't seen it. There is a general pass for Idris Elba and Sam Jackson. They have their faves, often if they starred in like a comic book movie they like. So maybe in their own heads, they've convinced themselves they aren't racist. They aren't racist for being huge Republicans and Trump supporters. But this targeting of black women is racist, and it's especially obvious when it basically boils down to, I don't like something because the character who was white is now black, or it's just a visibly black film like The Woman King. And it exposes the hypocrisy of don't change what's already been done before, make your own thing, because these people don't actually like it when these people make their own thing. So that is it for the video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.